How's it going, doggy people? Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and all the good holidays out there. Happy everything to y'all. I hope you all had wonderful festivities recently, and for any of you that do not celebrate those things, or there's other things I have not listed, happy holidays to that, and if you don't celebrate anything, then I hope you just had a great time. I hope you had just as good of a week as everybody else. I hope you're staying warm and dry for any of those that are up north and were recently dealing with the major storms or are still dealing with the major storms. I hope you were all safe. You are indoors. You're staying nice and warm, safe with family, your pets, and I hope that you've stocked up on groceries. Anyway, it's been a little while, so I wanted to finally catch up on part 2 of the Leave It video. I'm hoping for there to be a part 3 to this where I can actually show you real life working with my Shiba Adonis and teaching him how to leave something alone while we walk past it. Because I've shown you him being stationary and the treat moving, but it's a little bit different when the treat is stationary and we're walking by. So hopefully that will be in part 3, and I hope to get it up sooner than this long hiatus that it's taken me to get the other one up. So feel free to use this video as a podcast if you do not already. I'm just going to be answering these questions here on the screen. I took a little screenshot of the email I received from Jean, who's asking in the first place. So sorry for the long intro. Had a lot to catch up on, had a lot to get out there. So if you're ready for part 2, then let's begin. So first I say thank you for making the YouTube video. You're very welcome. I'm sorry it took me so long to get it done in the first place. In the second part, hopefully I can still help you. So they say, number 1, they don't know if it helps for part 2, but the rescue Shiba Toby is 2 years old, steals and tears up any and all plastic pieces he can find, papers, socks, and decoration items he finds in furniture. He'll even find small bits under the couch. We try leave it, but he just seems to play us for a chicken treat and switch command. Like gambling in Las Vegas, he sees if it's worth it more to him than to switch. I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, my Shiba, lots of dogs in particular, or lots of dogs in general will do this, but particularly the sneaky smarty pants Shibas will. He will also take it out of the house, play zoomies, and run in circles. He's too fast to chase around the house and yard. I agree, you shouldn't chase him, but there's times when we worry they have something dangerous, as we try to even catch up and switch and leave it. It's a game to him. You're absolutely right there. That it is very likely sounds like it's a game to him. He sometimes will swallow the item after we say drop it and switch, which is very dangerous. I'm not saying that's necessarily anything on the human's fault, just dangerous in general, dangerous behavior that can happen. And I will say that my own Shiba, one time, or a couple of times on different occasions, even at 9 or 10 years old, we were walking, and somebody had just left a straight up slice of pizza on the ground. I guess they were feeding the birds. I don't know, but it was just a slice of pizza in an area that was not around any other food, and Donna's got to it before I noticed it. So again, my fault. I wasn't keeping an eye out for it, but it happened. So he had this big piece in his mouth. He was trying to chew it up. I tried to get it out of his mouth, and before I could pry his little jaws open, he swallowed it. So I was not very happy about the people who had just left the food there like that. But after that, then I said, okay, this is something we're going to practice. So I practiced with pieces of bread, because he likes bread. So I would come in and I would practice that in the house where he could see something, and we worked on it a little bit. Pretty much that one time he was fine, but I haven't really worked too much on it. So I hope to get better with that. Nowadays I'm paying more attention. Nowadays I'm paying a lot more attention to what we're walking by and looking for things like that since then. But either way, it can be really scary if your dog does swallow something as you're trying to get them to, drop something. So back to this here, they say he already, as he's running around, has torn up the item at this point, and sometimes he looks up, tears the item, and then waits for chicken. Okay, so this dog has learned dogs are very smart. So a lot of people will say their dog is stubborn. I say it's just that the dog is too smart for their own good, and they don't understand where we're coming from as humans, which we don't expect them to, but they're not necessarily being stubborn. A lot of times they just don't understand what we want from them. He tears up the blankets we give him and swallows pieces. That's not good. We have a baby gate, playpen, but we must keep him in it at all times unless he is on harness or leash or contained in a space like a car, as he will run around the house looking for items to destroy and eat. So very good. Good on you. Good for containment system, for keeping him in preventing him from being able to get to that type of stuff. So we'll answer question 2 in just a minute, but just to cover this first part here, it seems to me like rescuing a Shiba, really any dog at 2 years old, but particularly a Shiba, because they can be strong-willed, they're not as easily willing to please you as, say, like a Labrador or a German Shepherd. They're more of an independent-minded dog. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, I, for one, chose the Shiba specifically because I knew I wanted a challenge and I got one. So a lot of people don't realize how to communicate with this type of dog versus other dogs, especially having an extra challenge of being not only a rescue, but a rescue at 2 years old. This behavior can be changed, but it's going to take some time because we don't know, at least I don't know Toby's history. I don't know his past history, but to me, it sounds like maybe he hasn't had a lot of training or consistency, or, I mean, he may have just been an outdoor dog or whatever it is. A lot of people will get Shibas because they're cute, as I've said in my other video. They get them as babies, and then at 9, 10, 11 months, when they start to have, a little bit of behavioral issues, a lot of times they end up in the shelters. You'll see a lot of 1-year-old, 10-month-old, 2-year-old Shibas in the shelters, or even older ones, because they've lost that cuteness and people don't know how to work with them. Me not knowing anything in the beginning with Adonis, I thought he was quite the pickle, but but I love him to death because he taught me that, like, look, you can't just be a stupid human and expect me to roll over when you say and this and that. And I learned how to really study the breed and really take my time and break things down into little bitty steps, okay? So this is what you're going to want to do with him. So this can take longer, but it is absolutely possible to accomplish what you want with this dog. He hasn't quite matured yet, at least from my experience. Adonis didn't really mature until he was, almost 4, maybe between 3 and 5, somewhere around there, but, 4 or 5 years old. And so this dog, although he's older, behaviors can start to be set in after about 2.5, 3 years. So this is just kind of a habit now for Toby. Toby has learned to take things, steal items, tear them up, swallow them, or trade for a piece of chicken or whatever it may be. And so whatever it is from the past, or if he was just never taught to leave these things alone, this is natural behavior to him. So we have to understand where he's coming from and learn to take the steps it takes to really teach him that, hey, no matter what you have, whether it's a piece of plastic, paper, a sock, or a fuzzy decoration, or something from the Christmas tree, whatever you may celebrate, or a blanket, that, it's nothing. It's nothing compared to what I have, because I have way more fun things for you. So switching for toys or teaching him what toys are appropriate can also be a bit difficult because he already has a habit of tearing things up and trying to ingest bits of plastic. I mean, my Shiba loves to, in his heyday, he would just take a toy and destroy it in nothing flat. So I used to get him a lot of toys from the dollar store. So, what is it? So handy tip there, if you want to get your dog a lot of really cheap toys, go to the dollar store. If they're going to tear them up instantly, it's $1 for like a little toy with a squeaky toy. They're awesome. But of course, always supervise your pet. So for Adonis, he will take the squeaker out, immediately, and he'll take the little knob in there and pull it and separate it from the rest of the round circular squeaker. So the actual part that makes the noise, you can pull it out of the top, and then that you can blow air into it with your mouth or whatever. That's what makes the squeaky noise. So he loves to chew on that. I mean, he will take little bits of plastic and chew on it between his tiny little teeth and his front paws, and he's never ever swallowed something once. He knows how to spit a pill out of a ball of peanut butter. So he's very good and agile with his mouth, which makes me a very bad pet sitter, because then I assume that all dogs are like that, and they're not. So with him, I looked out. But with your Shiba, swallowing it can be something that you want to look out for. So maybe it's not only behavioral, maybe it's biological. Maybe your dog might suffer from pica or pica, P-I-C-A, where they ingest non-edible items. So look into, first off, I always recommend taking your dog to your vet. If you can, get them checked out. Make sure that their blood work is fine. Maybe they need to be on a different, maybe they're missing nutrients. Maybe Toby is still hungry or bored or something. I don't know. There's a number of things that can be going on aside from just typical boredom and learning this behavior. But, some dogs I've worked with dogs that had this disorder, and a cat too. My sister has a cat that we believe had that disorder. We worked with a proper diet, and by proper diet I mean one that is filling, that is nutritious, versus say pedigree, the yellow bag where the first ingredients are corn meal, versus having a high protein, chicken and fish and such as the first few ingredients. Those are more filling, so your dog is less likely to try to constantly be hungry and constantly be looking for food to eat. So this will be something that can take time to work with. So, first off, check him out at the vet. Make sure everything's good. Then maybe look into his diet, nutritional needs. That might help you. Along with teaching him that he can be out, walk around the house with him on leash, and make sure, you prepare the house and you pick everything up ahead of time, so that the floors are bare and you're able to walk around with Toby around the house, for a couple minutes at a time. And every time he's, there's not going to be anything to entice him to grab. He may be looking for it, but if he can't find it, then maybe you can, mark and reward for that behavior, that he looks for it, it's not there, he stops practicing that behavior, maybe he looks at you randomly and you can give him that reward. The more you practice it, the better he will get. This behavior has been practiced enough to where it is a habit for Toby. Prevention is key. Make sure he's healthy, make sure he's not looking for other nutrients, and then really work on taking any item that he will like, practice while he's in his pen, where he doesn't have the opportunity to get to the item. If you can prevent him from going after those things, then you do that. And along with that, you will need to work on training. So training is going to be probably a big percentage of your time working with him, if you want him to be able to be outside of his pen or outside of, off of his harness. But I would start with the harness, have him just near me within a 6-foot leash or 4 feet of leash, whatever. You don't have to have him like glued to you, but at least within the distance of a leash, and be very, very aware of everything in his environment, and make a point to reward him when he doesn't go for something. Even if he's looking at it, if he gives up because he can't get to it, say it's 20 feet away from him or 10 feet away from him, and he's on a 6-foot leash, and he's trying, he can't get to it, he gives up, reward him for that, or try to get his attention, reward him for that. It's going to be a lot of active training with him to counter condition this response he has of being free, that now I have to go grab this stuff because it's a game. So we teach him a different kind of game. And I wouldn't necessarily worry about the word leave it. You may need to very well change your leave it cue or your switch cue, because, or you say command, I just say cue, same thing, because he may hear this and think, oh, that means eat it, that means run away, that means they're going to take it, and they're going to be, although we're flustered or we're worried, we don't want him to die or choke on something or eat something he shouldn't. That's his cue that says, oh, hey, it's playtime, let me go run around. So I would say work on the behavior before you say a new verbal cue, command, whatever you want to use. But I would say use a different word when the behavior is already strong. So like with Adonis, I taught him, I could drop the treat and all this and that before I even said a verbal word. And then I can add the verbal word later on. So I would say really just practice on that while he's, stationary in his behind his little pen or on leash with you, and just practice with lots and lots of things. Practice often. If you want, unless you have, 10 years that you want to work on this, that's fine. Practice as often as you can. So if you want this to be worked on, it's going to be kind of a proactive thing that you can have, a session 30 seconds, 20 times a day. That's 10 minutes, 10 minutes of training. If my math is correct, it may not be correct. But you can do that very often, very short instances throughout the day. And the majority of the time, the point of this, long story short, is you want to be practicing actively the behavior you want and preventing the behavior you don't want. There's going to be times when he may get out, he may get a piece of paper, he may play keep away. We just say, okay, we're going to try and counter condition this. We're going to try to set it up in an area where we can control the environment and try to practice that more than when he gets away and he, eats up a piece of paper or whatever. So those would be my tips for just starting off. Just have really low expectations, and then that way, it's really hard to fail. I mean, just bring your expectations to the ground almost. And it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that's just where you start. You start with Adonis. I've started from the beginning a million times with my own Shiba. And we call it in the training world, just go back to kindergarten. You just go back to the first grade and you move up to second, third, fourth, and so on and so forth. And then, if you make a mistake, sometimes you got to go back and retrain a behavior. Training is for life. So it's management. With Toby here, it may be management throughout his whole life, that you really need to keep an eye on it, on stuff like this. So I hope that helps for question 1. And again, in part 3, I'll show you the next step, or the step that I would do when outside, when you don't necessarily have food with you, what I would do. But the goal is that you want to be prepared as much as you can when he is not in a controlled environment, meaning in his pen, within the house, or when he's outside of his pen in the house, or he's off of a leash in the house, or you're on a walk. So that'll be in part 3. But question 2 we have: can you make a video on a dominant dog who is aggressive? You try to pet his head or ears, bites, no warning, and he is not in the mood. If they are, they of course roll on their backs, showing they want affection. How do you desensitize this behavior? I see others petting their dog's heads and ears. My dad got bit from just stroking the back of his hand against his ear. So this is some really good question and really important behavior to keep an eye on. So first off, I would say that a dog who is reactive to touching on the head or the ears is not, in my opinion, is not, from my experience or opinion, being dominant. The dog is just being reactive because he's fearful, and he has learned over time. The dogs very generally don't bite with no warning. Most of the time, dogs will give many warnings before they bite. So it tells me that maybe in Toby's past, he's been giving plenty of warnings and nobody listened to him. So then he goes straight to the bite. And because he says, if I bite, that gets you to leave me alone a lot quicker than me giving you whale eyes, where the whites of the eyes show, or lip licking, licking his nose or his lips, or yawning, or moving away, or doing eye flicks, giving you calming signals. Nobody reads those, meaning humans. And so eventually he may show his teeth and then he bites. Okay, so I was going to use my Shiba for this demonstration, but he is too tired. He just had lunch. He was a crazy man, so he's not having it. He's not having my nonsense. So I'm going to use myself as a quick demonstration for visual purposes. So say I'm Toby, and I know that Toby has a comfortable spot by his shoulder. So I would just start scratching Toby on his shoulder, wherever he's comfortable, and he may be just totally chilling. And then I can slowly work my way up to here a little bit, and then back down. So this would be an example of pressure, and this is release. Animals learn on the release of pressure. So this would be, stimulating him. He gets maybe a little bit nervous, but we move away and he calms down again. The goal is that we don't want him to react. So if we're training with him, or we're working with him, or interacting with him, anytime you're interacting with a dog, you're training them. So you want to be aware of what he's learning. So if we're going up here, scratchy, scratchy, scratch, and we go up a little bit here and he kind of moves away, okay, we're working too fast. Remember, this is a process, not an event. So we're scratching his shoulder, we move up just a little bit and then back down. And then just up and then back down. And a little bit slower than that, probably, the pace. You don't want to get him all jacked up. And so if you're watching his facial expressions and you're scratching him where he likes it, on his shoulder, and you move up to his neck a little bit and he leans away, or say he has an open mouth here, and then he closes his mouth as you go up here, or his eyes look at you, working a little bit fast, but we don't have to necessarily stop. Just go back to his shoulder and end it there. You want to teach him that he can trust you to touch him in areas that are sensitive to him. The ears and the face and the eyes and the mouth, that's all very sensitive to dogs. Same with their tails or their feet. So don't just go ambushing. Don't go straight for the ears. Work your way up to it. So over time, you can scratch him, go up here a little bit, and then he says, oh, okay, that feels pretty good. And then you leave him alone. Go up and scratch, again, pressure and release. And he learns on the release that you will listen to him before he has to tell you to back off. So you don't put him in that position. And over time, you can slowly work up the back of his neck over here, to his ears, and just brush it and move away. And then go back and scratch over here, and then just lightly brush it. And you want him to know that you're going for it. You don't want to be sneaky. Don't try to sneak in a pet, because they learn and they don't trust you. I work with horses as well, so they are a big, spooky four-legged prey animal, and I'm a predator. So a lot of people go for a horse's face and they freak out and they run away. So I go out in a field and I halter horses. That's where I learn pressure release. So I've taught them to accept ropes around their feet and such, by slowly doing this. I've taught them to accept me touching parts of their face or rubbing the inside of their ear, by doing the same thing where you scratch where they like it, and then you just move up to the ear and then you go back down. And if you do that, at the right time, then they learn, okay, they can accept it. You're not going to hurt them. But if you do that and they move away every time, then you're walking a little bit fast. You might teach them that, you're not listening to their signals. So then I just start here again, and then they may run away expecting you're going to touch their ear. That's okay. You just keep on focusing here. Okay, you just keep on scratching here. So if Toby expects you're going to touch his ear, then, oh, hey, let him expect it. I'm not even going to go for his ear. I'm just going to touch his shoulder. So if I go for his shoulder, he runs away. Okay, no problem. We'll just have him come back. I can give him a little reward, and then I can touch his shoulder again. He might kind of run away, but only halfway this time. And then he learns, oh, okay, I can predict what you're going to do. You're not going to go for my ear. You're going to touch my shoulder. And then once we have that trust, we don't want to betray it and then sneak in an ear. We want to go at the shoulder and stay at the shoulder for a while. Show him that we can, show him that he can trust us. And then while we're at the shoulder, maybe we just move up a half inch and then back down, and then back up and then back down. Then he might get a little bit nervous, but again, we just make it predictable. We stay there for a little while until he's really comfortable. And then we move up just a little bit more and back down. Every time you're increasing that percentage of touching him to where your goal is the ears, you're teaching him he can trust you because you do it the slow way. The slow way is the fast way. Trust me. If you try to go in there and just manhandle him and touch him, he'll accept it eventually, but he's not going to like it, and he's not going to trust you, and it's probably always going to be a fight, or he will be fearful. And Shibas do not take kindly to domination and aggressive manners, as I'm sure that you have seen. If you haven't learned that already, if you haven't tried to be aggressive with your Shiba, then good. Don't. He will teach you a good lesson. But he's not being that. He's just being a dog. He's being a Shiba. I know you're worried about him. You use the word dominant as in him being dominant or acting dominant because he doesn't want you to touch his ears. And to me, that's not really him being dominant, it's more than him just being nervous. He's afraid, of things hurting his ears, sensitive areas, the eyes, the ears, the mouth and feet, things they're just instinctively uncomfortable with. And so we have to teach them to be comfortable. Other animals, when they're going for the ears, usually they're biting or they're tearing them off or they go for a fight. So it's natural for them to be afraid of people touching it, especially if he hasn't had a lot of socializing. As it sounds, he may not have in his previous home. Or maybe he was a street dog. I don't know his history. But all that matters for dogs is the now, the here and now. So we just gotta go slow, teach him he can, hands are a good thing. They're not a bad thing. And an act of being dominant would actually be on the human's part, where if we were to be aggressive and force him to put up with this handling, we would be the one who's being dominant over him, not the other way around. Dominance doesn't have to be an act of aggression. It's really just if, there's a resource, say a steak, and there's two dogs, and they both go for it, and one dog says, back off, and bites this other one, or growls at them, or just takes the food, and this one doesn't fight back. This one, in this moment, was dominant over the other, and they have full control of the resource. Okay, so dominance is really just gaining control of resources. So just because Toby doesn't want you to touch his ears, it's really not a matter of him thinking that he's higher than you in any hierarchy. He's just saying, hey, I'm nervous, and I've learned over time people have not trusted me or not listened to me when I give them calming signals, such as a lip lick. I move away, I give them an eye flick, my whale eyes, closed lips, closed mouth. So people don't listen to him, so then he just goes straight for a bite. He says, well, that's a quick way to get him to leave me alone, so I'm just going to go straight to the bite. So it's just a bad lesson that he's learned that we have to just, reteach new lessons we want him to learn that will eventually cause that other bad behavior to become extinct. So work your way slowly up there. Remember, process not an event. Don't go straight for the ears. Don't be predatory. Start somewhere where he likes it, and then slowly move your way up, figuratively and literally. Slowly move your way up the shoulder, and then up to, or up the back, or down, to the paws, wherever. You can use this technique on all over the dog's body, and just watch for his calming signals, or when he's had enough, do lots of short little sessions. 30 seconds at a time or 10 seconds at a time. Rub his shoulder a little bit higher, back down, until, he knows what's going to happen. And then you just slowly move up. And, you don't want to spook him. And he'll let you know when you've done too much or you're working too fast. So listen to Toby, listen to your dog. And they're never wrong. They teach you a lot of great lessons. You just have to know, what to look for. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much for watching. In part 3, we are going to be doing the leave it in real life, as well as teaching Adonis to be able to walk by it. So I hope this helped. Again, let me know if you have any other questions. I might have brought up more questions than answered them. And if you have questions, feel free to send them my way. Happy to do that for you. Thanks again. And until next time, stay positive.